Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever felt like we're living through a truly pivotal moment in history?
Mm.
You know, a time when the daily headlines, they almost seem to echo narratives, warnings from ancient texts.
Yeah, it's definitely a feeling a lot of people have right now. Something significant.
Exactly. It's that undeniable feeling that something profound is unfolding, a sense that we're standing on the cusp of a new era, maybe even that age of abundance that scriptures have talked about for, well, millennia.
Right, that specific phrase keeps coming up in these materials.
So today we're taking a deep dive into an incredible collection of sources, really fascinating stuff.
Hmm.
This material, it bravely weaves together ancient prophecies, the concept of end times, and it frames them very differently, doesn't it?
It does, not as like total destruction.
Right, not annihilation, but as a monumental transition between cosmic ages. And then it throws in some truly surprising connections to modern developments, particularly artificial intelligence.
Which seems almost out of left field at first, but the connection they draw is quite compelling.
And we're doing this through a multi-faith lens, drawing insights from Hinduism, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, looking at shared themes and, yeah, some significant divergences too.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is how these sources consistently suggest that what many traditions call end times isn't really about the ultimate destruction of the world.
Hmm.
It's more about the conclusion of a really profound and significant age, making way for a completely new one.
New beginning.
Exactly. It encourages you listening, to look beyond the immediate events, the day-to-day headlines, and consider the grand sweep of history and these spiritual cycles.
So our mission for you, as we explore this material, what would you say it is?
Well, I think it's to offer a shortcut, maybe,
Yeah.
a way to understand this really complex tapestry of ideas.
Okay.
We want to help you connect the historical patterns with future possibilities.
Mm.
But the goal isn't to endorse any specific belief system. That's really important.
Absolutely. Just clarity.
Just clarity and broader context from the material you provided, so you can navigate these, frankly, intriguing concepts with a more informed perspective.
That makes a lot of sense. So if we're going to understand these prophecies, these cycles, it feels like we need a framework, a foundation.
Definitely.
Left it right at the beginning. Let's dive into a concept that has defined cosmic time for thousands of years in one of the world's oldest traditions. Okay, so our journey begins with the Hindu concept of cyclical time. And this is a profound departure from the linear view of progress that, often dominates Western thought.
Right, the idea that things just keep getting better and better, technologically at least.
Exactly. But instead of that straight line from past to future, Hindu cosmology presents history as a series of vast repeating epochs or yugas.
Yugas.
And this framework, as our sources present it, it's foundational for understanding the ebb and flow of civilization and, yeah, spiritual decline too.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's a really sophisticated system. It's designed to illustrate the spiritual evolution and sometimes, well, devolution of humanity over these immense spans of time.
So these yugas, there are four main ones.
That's right, 4 primary yugas. The first, the most ancient, is the Satya Yuga. It's often called the Age of Truth.
The golden age, essentially.
You could say that. In this age, Dharma, that's the principle of cosmic order, righteousness, it stands firmly on all 4 legs. It embodies its full potential.
Okay.
People live with immense integrity, deep compassion, a profound sense of harmony. Human relations, the sources tell us, genuinely reflect divine ideals. It's depicted as an age of near-perfect spiritual alignment and profound wisdom.
Wow. Sounds idyllic. But then the gradual descent begins, right? There's a clear pattern of decline described.
That's a powerful observation.
Yeah.
Yes, the decline is gradual, but it's consistent. Next comes the Trita Yuga. Here, Dharma stands on 3 legs.
Still pretty good, 3 out of 4.
It's still very strong, yeah. Virtue is still dominant, but a subtle shift occurs. The seeds of individual desire, ego, ambition, they start to emerge. They subtly influence human actions and interactions.
Okay, so the cracks are starting to appear.
A little bit. Then following that is the Dwapara Yuga. Now, Dharma is reduced to just 2 legs, halfway gone.
Right.
The world becomes significantly more materialistic, less spiritually inclined, conflicts increase, the focus shifts from collective harmony towards, well, individual pursuits, self-interest.
And these sources say that age ended quite a while ago.
They do. They place the end of the Dwapara Yuga over 5,000 years ago. That marks a very significant historical transition in their view.
Which brings us to now, the Kali Yuga. The Age of Darkness. It certainly sounds ominous.
It is, and the description is stark, almost chilling. In the Kali Yuga, Dharma is just teetering precariously on a single leg.
Holding on by a thread.
Pretty much. Truth, as we understand it, becomes relative, almost subjective. We see pervasive corruption, widespread division, a marked increase in cruelty. Deceit becomes systemic. There's a profound decay of cosmic order, of Dharma. This is the age where, as the sources put it, truth becomes relative.
That phrase really stands out.
It does, and it's not just metaphorical darkness. The sources explicitly mention Kali Purusha, a demonic figure they see as the embodiment of this darkness and spiritual decay, very similar to Satan in Western traditions.
Wow.
It underscores the profound spiritual challenge of this age. And the core question this age asks, a really sobering one, is what happens when we, as a species, walk away from God?
And the answer?
The answer, the sources state quite harshly, is we begin to treat each other terribly. It's presented as a clear cause and effect.
That's a powerful and, rather chilling question and answer, but why? Why do these ages exist? Why this cycle of decline? Why does humanity have to go through this darkness?
It's explained with a simple, but I think profound analogy in the sources. Think of it like seasons changing. Why do leaves fall in autumn? Why do we need winter? Why does snow come before the blossom? These ages are presented as being just as natural and necessary as those changing seasons.
So they serve a purpose.
Exactly. The sources explain they're about crucial lessons for humanity. We have to learn, apparently through experience, what happens when we abandon God, when we abandon the principles of Dharma.
Like learning the hard way.
Precisely. It's only by walking through this darkness, they suggest, that humanity can truly long for the light again and really appreciate its return. But even in the Kali Yuga, there's still hope mentioned.
Oh.
Yeah, they remind us we are still on earth, not yet in hell. It implies a possibility for redemption, for learning even now.
Okay, that's slightly reassuring. This pattern of ages, especially how they transition, it leads us to a crucial historical observation in these sources. If these cycles are real, what can we learn about how they usually end? It sounds like it's often not, peaceful.
You're right, it's rarely peaceful. The sources highlight a really striking pattern from previous yugas. These grand transitions, they often come through great upheaval, and unfortunately through significant, often cataclysmic wars.
We're not talking small conflicts here.
No, not minor skirmishes. We're referring to conflicts that fundamentally reshaped entire civilizations and spiritual landscapes.
Yeah.
Huge transformative events.
Can you give us some specific examples? What kind of wars are we talking about?
Certainly. One really prominent example is the Mahabharata War. This explicitly marked the end of the Dwapara Yuga.
Okay.
And the sources are very clear. This war was, in fact, entirely avoidable. Lord Krishna himself offered peace, engaged in extensive dialogue, provided immense clarity, opportunities for reconciliation.
Right.
But Duryodhana, consumed by injustice, greed, ego, he chose destruction. And it led to this catastrophic conflict that, as the epic describes, wiped out entire lineages. Just devastating.
Wow. And there's another example.
Yes. Similarly, the Ramayana War marked the end of the Treta Yuga. Again, peace was offered, this time by Lord Rama. Every opportunity for redemption was given.
But Ravana chose.
Ravana, blinded by lust and ego, chose annihilation. So in both these epic conflicts, the sources really emphasize that evil was given ample chance to repent. Goodness offered dialogue, clarity, compassion.
It wasn't enough.
It wasn't enough. In the end, war became a necessity, not a choice, because repentance didn't prevail. It's framed almost as a divine judgment.
So the powerful implication here is, if the past two yugas ended with such catastrophic conflict, should we expect the Kali Yuga to end any differently?
It's a profound and very direct question posed by these sources, and their answer is pretty stark. Only if repentance prevails.
If things change fundamentally.
Right. If deception and the refusal to turn from evil win out again, then they suggest the cycle is pretty much destined to repeat. It sets a very clear, almost chilling precedent for our current age. It urges a deep reflection on humanity's choices right now.
Okay. This brings us to what the sources describe as a call for a threefold awakening. This seems absolutely crucial for navigating these times. It's not about seeking war, is it?
No, not at all. It's about being prepared if it comes and what that preparation truly entails.
So what are the three folds of this awakening?
Exactly. This call is rooted in spiritual urgency and moral courage. It's presented as a pragmatic and necessary approach to what could be a very tumultuous transition. The first component is spiritual clarity.
Okay, clarity about what?
This means understanding the true nature of certain belief systems. And the sources are very direct here. Particularly, they single out understanding what they describe as the true nature of Islam, not from, sanitized
What's
textbooks.
from its own sources?
From its own foundational sources and historical actions, yes. It's about exposing what these sources call its lies, naming its blasphemies, dissecting its tactics, even those hidden in plain sight. It's a call for uncompromising truthfulness.
That's very direct. And
Yeah.
the second part, it seems to balance that stark clarity with compassion. How do they frame that?
Yes, it's about evangelical compassion. And this is directed specifically toward individuals who are seen as deceived, not as inherently evil.
Okay.
The sources recognize Muslims as fellow souls who, despite being born into what's described as a theological system that weaponizes fear and suppresses truth, are still deeply made in the image of God.
So the distinction is key.
Absolutely. The sources emphasize Muslims are souls, not enemies. This approach focuses on rescuing as many as can be reached through conversation, courageous witness, and prayer. It's about love, not condemnation of the individual person.
Okay. And finally, the third part. This sounds like the most sobering aspect.
That's the sobering recognition. The understanding that this age, like the previous ones, may indeed end in war.
A possibility we have to face.
A possibility, yes.
Yeah.
The sources are explicit. They are not advocating for conflict. They're calling for a profound preparedness to endure it if it becomes inevitable, if the path of repentance is rejected again. The reiteration here is powerful. If war comes, let it not be for lack of clarity, compassion, or preparation. It's a call to be watchful, wise, and ready, not for aggression, but for righteous judgment when evil refuses the light of truth and divine guidance. It's a call to both spiritual and practical vigilance.
That's a lot to take in about these grand cosmic cycles and the call to awakening. Now, let's zoom in on the specific signs. The unmistakable markers, as these sources call them, that suggest the Kali Yuga is nearing its end. These markers, drawing heavily from texts like the Bhagavata Purana, they paint a rather vivid and, frankly, somewhat disturbing picture of societal and moral erosion.
Indeed. The descriptions are quite explicit, quite detailed. The first marker these sources highlight is the collapse of moral order.
Okay, what does that look like?
We're talking about a world where truth isn't inherently valued anymore, where loyalty becomes rare. Leaders are overwhelmingly corrupt. They describe a society where lust is celebrated, greed replaces generosity, and, maybe most strikingly, right is mocked and wrong is normalized.
Well, potent.
It is. The Bhagavata Purana is quoted directly. In the age of Kali, wealth alone will be considered the sign of a man's good birth, proper behavior, and fine qualities. It paints a picture where material gain just completely eclipses virtue and integrity.
That certainly sounds familiar in many ways, almost eerily reflective of aspects of our modern world. What's next on this inventory of decline?
Following that is widespread financial slavery. The sources describe debt-based economies, rampant inflation, wage stagnation, all contributing to economic inequality.
Which creates
What they call a new caste system, not based on traditional markers, but on ownership and control. Wealth, it's prophesied, will flow predominantly to the corrupt,
and the poor.
effectively enslaved through economic mechanisms. They even warn that religious leaders will sell blessings for gold, turning spiritual guidance into a commodity.
Goodness.
The stark summary is that mammon becomes God. Mammon, that spirit of material wealth and greed becomes the ultimate idol. Human dignity is, in their view, auctioned off to this pervasive economic system.
And this breakdown doesn't stop at finances, does it? It extends to the very fabric of society, the family unit itself, which these sources seem to hold as incredibly important.
Precisely. The fifth marker they point to is the desecration of life and family. In the final stages of Kali Yuga, they predict marriage as an institution will be broken, the traditional family unit mocked, children corrupted.
That's grim.
It is. Elders are abandoned, life itself seen as disposable, lacking inherent sacred value. The Linga Purana is cited. Children will no longer respect parents. Husbands and wives will fight over trivial matters. Trust will vanish.
And they connect this to modern trends.
Very directly. The sources are clear that developments like widespread abortion, the normalization of divorce, increasing gender confusion, the proliferation of pornography, these are not seen as cultural progress,
But
as deeply concerning signs of spiritual decay and the breaking of cosmic order.
and this societal unraveling, it also seems to lead to a deeper internal confusion, like a global identity crisis.
That's the sixth marker, exactly. A global identity crisis. People, the sources suggest, no longer seem to know who they truly are. The lines between male and female are blurred,
Mm-hmm.
as are the distinctions between objective truth and subjective opinion, even between what constitutes human and machine. This isn't seen as evolution, but as devolution, a spiritual regression.
Evolution, that's a strong word.
It is. The Yoga Vasista is quoted stating, "The soul forgets its source. In forgetting, it becomes vulnerable to all forms of control." It suggests a profound loss of self, making individuals susceptible to manipulation from all sides.
Okay, so we've covered the moral and societal decay, according to these sources. How do they describe the changes in the spiritual and intellectual landscapes as the Kali Yuga nears its end?
This brings us to the rise of false religions. The truthful paths, it's warned, will be mocked or marginalized.
And in their place.
Deceptive systems claiming divine authority will rise. These are described as religions demanding submission, not love. Ideologies that deny free will and suppress reason.
And they single out one specific example again.
They do. The sources we're examining specifically call out Islam, again, not merely as another path, but what they describe as a spiritual counterfeit, a system of coercion dressed as religion. Wow. They assert that the rise of Islam as a global force is one of the clearest signs of intensifying spiritual war in their view. This interpretation is further supported by a quote they use from the Bhagavad Gita. They say the world is without truth, without moral order, and without a God. A sentiment they claim aligns with the rise of systems denying absolute divine authority or inherent moral order.
That's a very, very strong claim. What about leadership within spiritual circles themselves? Do these sources have anything to say about that?
Yes, that leads directly to the marker of the loss of spiritual authority. The spiritual leaders of today, these sources contend, are often more like celebrities, not sages.
Politicians in robes?
That's the phrase they use, yes. Politicians in robes rather than true spiritual guides. They're described as empty priests repeating dead words. The genuine guru principle is said to have decayed. Traditional churches infiltrated. Even sacred practices like yoga commercialized into meaninglessness. True saints, the sources note, are hidden or marginalized, while false gurus proliferate, often using modern platforms like social media.
So the message is?
The core message is clear. Spiritual authority has collapsed, making it incredibly difficult for people to find genuine spiritual guidance.
And with this collapse of truth and authority comes widespread deception and confusion, like a global fog settling in.
Yes, exactly. What these sources call a massive global delusion. The mind of Kali, it's explained, operates not primarily through brute force, but through sophisticated deception.
How does that manifest?
Through media lies, pervasive government manipulation, ideological indoctrination in schools, religious confusion. It's everywhere. And what's most concerning, according to the sources, is that most people don't even care. Apathy, or just inability to discern the truth. This is seen as a fulfillment of prophecy, with the Bhagavata Purana stating, people will prefer lies to truth. They will follow charismatic leaders into ruin. It's a world where discernment is tragically lost.
And linked to that, the proliferation of false prophets, not just spiritual, but political ones, too.
Indeed. There are explicit warnings of fake gurus, cult leaders, political messiahs. This aligns with scriptural predictions across traditions. Matthew 24.24 is cited, false messiahs will appear and deceive many.
And our age.
In our current social media age, these charismatic influencers can command the attention of millions, often with, frankly, devastating consequences. The danger isn't just deception, but the erosion of trust itself, blurring the line between a genuine leader and a manipulative cultist or political figure.
So we've covered the moral, societal, and spiritual decay. How do these prophecies connect to the escalating global crises we see all around us, the geopolitical stuff, the environmental challenges that seem to be intensifying daily?
The signs also extend explicitly to the geopolitical and environmental landscape. Absolutely. The next marker is the world at war.
Current conflicts.
Yes, current global conflicts. Ukraine, Gaza, Sudan, the rising tensions between China and Taiwan, Indo-Pak relations, the rivalries between the U.S., Russia, China, these are all likened by these sources to a global Mahabharata.
Wow, that's a powerful comparison.
It is. And they highlight the chilling fact that the doomsday clock in 2025 was set to 90 seconds to midnight, the closest it has ever been.
Unprecedented.
It suggests an unprecedented convergence of high-risk conflicts in nuclear-armed regions. It's described as a global powder keg, just waiting for a spark.
And how is the state of our planet viewed through this prophetic lens? Is it just climate change or something more profound?
That leads to ecological collapse. accelerating natural disasters, earthquakes, widespread floods, severe droughts, pervasive pollution, mass species extinctions. These aren't merely seen as isolated environmental issues or just climate change at these sources.
They're seen as
Karmic rebalancing. The Mahabharata is quoted stating, "When a dharma increases, even the seasons lose balance."
so nature itself reacting.
It's interpreted as nature itself rebelling, reacting as cosmic order collapses, a direct consequence of humanity's increasing spiritual imbalance and exploitation.
We've also seen a rapid rise in global health challenges recently. Are these also considered markers of the Kali Yuga's end?
Yes, the concept of silent pandemics is explicitly mentioned in these sources. COVID-19 is presented as potentially just the beginning,
Oh,
with growing antibiotic resistance and emerging pathogens signaling potentially worse to come. The WHO's warning of a post-antibiotic era, possibly leading to 10 million deaths annually by 2050, and the 2024 Mpox outbreak are cited as concrete, unfolding examples.
underscoring fragility.
Exactly, underscoring the increasing fragility of global health systems. These are seen as divine warnings, perhaps, or consequences of collective karma.
And how does our rapidly advancing technology, especially AI, fit into this prophetic inventory? Is it a tool for good or something more sinister?
That's the marker of the weaponization of technology. The sources argue that technology, which you'd think should liberate humanity and foster connection,
Right.
is instead becoming a tool for pervasive surveillance, a mechanism for mass distraction, a platform for sophisticated manipulation, rather than enlightenment or wisdom.
And AI specifically.
The concern is that artificial intelligence is now mimicking divine gifts, speech, creativity, discernment, digital currency, mimicking sacred value. But the heart behind it, in their view, is hollow and often manipulative. It's explicitly stated that we are moving toward a global control system,
Likened to.
likened to Revelation's Mark of the Beast, suggesting a system designed to exert total control over individuals.
So technology intertwined with economic control. Almost a new form of servitude.
Exactly. This ties directly into the next marker, economic collapse and digital chains. There's a prediction of broader economic collapse, ongoing inflation, banking failures, citing recent events like the Silicon Valley Bank collapse in 2022-2023 as precursors.
And this is coupled with
The accelerating rise of central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, which these sources view not just as an evolution of finance,
but as potential.
potential techno-slavery. Because unlike physical cash, CBDCs are digital liabilities of the central bank. This gives the government a direct view and potentially control over every transaction.
Huge privacy concerns.
Massive privacy and control concerns due to their programmable nature and the potential for unprecedented surveillance over individual economic activity.
And in this landscape of collapsing order and increasing control, what about leadership? Who rises to fill the vacuum?
The sources warn of the rise of anti-kings and false saviors. In the absence of righteous, spiritually aligned leadership, the world becomes ripe for megalomaniacs, war-hungry tyrants, globalist puppets serving a different agenda.
A vacuum filled by.
It's described as a vacuum where anti-human technocrats thrive, making the world ripe for tyranny and the arrival of the final deceiver. Whether called Dajjal in Islam, Antichrist in Christianity, or Kali incarnate in Hinduism, these figures are presented as embodying the ultimate deception of the age.
And beyond earthly events, are there signs in the cosmos itself? Divine omens pointing to this ending.
Yes, cosmic signs are listed as divine omens. Blood moons, eclipses, meteor showers, a greener Arabia, magnetic shifts.
Things people are noticing.
Exactly. While these phenomena often have scientific explanations, they hold deep scriptural resonance for these sources. For instance, the tetrads of blood moons in 2024-2025 prompted significant prophetic interpretations. The greening of Arabia is noted in context of Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 projects.
And there's a specific event they highlight?
Yes, a particularly striking real-world development emphasized by these sources, the upcoming 2025 ceremony of red heifers in Samaria. This is seen as directly linked to the imminent construction of the Third Temple in Jerusalem, a development with profound religious significance for Judaism and Christianity, and obviously clear geopolitical implications. Some argue Hamas's 2023 attack was partially fueled by fear of Temple Mount reconstruction. It's presented as a powerful, unfolding religious development aligning with ancient prophecies.
And finally, when all these markers align, what is the ultimate culmination? It sounds almost like an inescapable destiny in these texts.
When all other signs are in place, the sources claim that war on the horizon becomes inevitable.
Not just any war.
No, not just nations fighting nations. They emphasize it's a civilizational conflict, a war of spirit, ideology, and destiny.
Examples.
The sources explicitly point to current tensions: Russia and the West, China and Taiwan, Iran and Israel, Islam and the rest, as examples of these converging civilizational clashes.
And this final war.
May even be preceded, they suggest, by the arrival of a holy avatar, Kalki riding forth to destroy deception and restore Dharma. The chilling conclusion for this section is a direct question to you, the listener. The age of ending. Are you awake?
Oh.
It's a call to be watchful, wise, and ready for what they see as the impending climax of this age.
That's a lot to take in about the state of the world according to these prophecies. A really intense inventory. Now let's pivot slightly to a question that has puzzled many for millennia, and it's central to interfaith dialogue. Why did Jews not accept Jesus as the Messiah? This is a point of significant discussion in the sources we reviewed.
It is, and the sources offer a clear perspective, rooted in their reading of Scripture. They suggest that Jewish rejection of Jesus isn't, a dismissal out of hand. It's presented as a textual interpretation issue.
Oh, so?
They read the book of Isaiah, which describes the Messiah, and in their interpretation, Jesus simply didn't align with that description fully, particularly concerning the establishment of a physical earthly kingdom right then and there.
Which was the expectation.
Which was a core expectation, yes. This is crucial for understanding their historical and theological stance, according to these materials.
And there's a fascinating connection made here to the Lord's Prayer, which is absolutely central to Christianity. How do these sources connect that prayer to this issue?
Absolutely. The sources highlight the Lord's Prayer, which Jesus famously taught his disciples. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Right.
The key insight these sources offer here is that this prayer is taught by Jesus, but it's explicitly addressed to God the Father, not to Jesus himself.
Interesting distinction.
It is. It's presented as a plea for God to become king on earth. This recontextualizes the expectation of the Messiah, suggesting maybe Jesus wasn't surprised by the Jewish rejection because the prophecies he fulfilled were only fully evident in hindsight after his crucifixion and resurrection.
So unfulfilled prophecies.
Unfulfilled prophecies, the sources explain, require patience and humility. The Messiah Jews await is described as Yahweh in human form. And while the prophecy of the Davidic line was fulfilled in Jesus in the Christian view, the final act, according to this interpretation, is God himself becoming king on earth.
And this is where interfaith dialogue becomes crucial.
For these sources, yes. It's essential for deeper understanding, for clarifying what might appear confusing or incomplete, and pointing towards maybe a shared divine aspiration, even with differing interpretations.
So if Christians are praying to God the Father, and Jews are awaiting Yahweh in human form, it suggests a shared, deeper understanding of the divine, even if the paths diverge. This leads to a truly surprising claim from these sources: a shared prophetic vision, or at least a profound harmony between Christianity and Hinduism. That's not a connection many people typically make.
It's a remarkable synthesis these sources present, absolutely. They argue that Christians praying to God the Father, or Yahweh, are essentially praying to the same God Jews worship. And crucially, they assert that this very God is also known to Hindus as Vishnu.
Wow, okay. That's a big claim.
It is. Furthermore, the end times in this context are interpreted not as the destruction of the entire world, but specifically about the end of this age, the Kali Yuga, which aligns perfectly with Hindu cosmology's detailed, age-based framework.
So the framework matches.
The framework matches. This is a powerful point for their vision of interfaith harmony, suggesting a common thread running through seemingly disparate traditions.
And the sources even tackle the historical misrepresentation of Hinduism here, which is a significant point, especially regarding colonialism.
Yes, they offer a sharp critique of British colonialism. They argue that British colonizers, despite claiming adherence to Christianity, propagated deeply offensive and misleading narratives labeling Hinduism as a false religion. The sources explicitly state these colonialists never read the Book of Exodus, which unequivocally shows God's opposition to slavery, colonization, exploitation. They are characterized by these sources not as spiritual seekers, but as thieves and thugs, who intentionally misread Hindu scriptures to discredit Sanatana Dharma for their own political and economic gain. A very strong condemnation.
So what does Hinduism say about Vishnu's presence on Earth, and how do these sources connect that to Christian prophecy in the future?
Well, Hindus readily explain that Vishnu has incarnated on Earth in human form before, most famously as Lord Rama, depicted in the Ramayana, and again as Lord Krishna, central to the Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita.
Right.
Now, what's truly astonishing, and a core claim of these sources, is Krishna's promise in the Bhagavad Gita, given 5,000 years ago. He declared he would return to reestablish Dharma,
Meaning?
meaning ending the current age, the Kali Yuga, and beginning a new one. And then the sources make a very bold, very profound claim. They suggest, quite directly, that the figure Krishna promised, the one who will reestablish Dharma, is here, now.
Wow, that's a statement.
It is. This assertion sets a powerful tone for their view of the impending end of this age. This current age, they assert, will end in a few decades, and the next age of Dharma will begin. A new age that they claim has already been vividly described in the book of Isaiah.
So they see alignment there too.
Complete alignment. The sources conclude this point by claiming that no contradiction has been found between the Bible and Hindu scriptures on these core points, but instead harmony, pointing to what they see as a unified divine plan.
This idea of a divine figure returning to usher in a new age brings us to the concept of the final avatar in Hinduism, and what these sources warn could be a significant danger in recognizing him. It sounds as recognition will be anything but straightforward.
Indeed. In Hinduism, this figure is the Kalki avatar, described as a warrior on a white horse who destroys evil and restores Dharma.
Okay.
The sources strongly hint that the Kalki avatar has already arrived and is notably hated by global elites.
Which sets up the danger.
Exactly. This sets up what the sources identify as the great danger. When the Messiah comes, many will say, that's the devil.
So misidentification is the risk.
A profound misidentification. It suggests that when the Lord's Prayer is finally answered, when God's kingdom truly comes to earth, many Christians might actually recoil. They might behave just like those who questioned Jesus' divinity during his time, saying, isn't this Joseph's son? Isn't this just a carpenter from Nazareth?
Familiarity breeds contempt, almost. Or disbelief.
Or disbelief based on unmet expectations or prejudice. The profound point being made is that familiarity or a failure to recognize the divine in an unexpected form might invalidate divinity in the eyes of many. Recognizing God in human form is presented as a profound challenge.
How is it possible, then?
Possible only, they suggest, if one truly understands that you yourself come from God, that your soul is indestructible, directly from the divine. That understanding allows for a resonance, a recognition of the divine presence in others, however unexpectedly it manifests.
We've explored the connections and harmonies the sources draw between Judaism, Christianity, and Hinduism regarding these prophecies. Now, the sources dedicate a significant portion to Islam, presenting what they see as a very distinct path and framing it in terms of spiritual warfare. This section calls for both clarity and, again, that concept of evangelical compassion.
This is a particularly sensitive area, certainly, and the sources are very direct, very blunt in their assessment. They state that Islam is not merely another religion. Instead, they assert it is a totalizing worldview, which they claim was born in blood and preserved in coercion.
Strong words.
Very strong. They further describe it as fundamentally denying core Christian tenets, specifically the sonship of Jesus, the crucifixion and resurrection, the Holy Spirit, freedom of conscience, and the pluralism of God's creation.
And they claim it demands.
They assert that it demands submission or death, seeks supremacy over all other faiths, and holds eternal hostility toward Jews and Christians until they submit. The sources categorize this whole dynamic as spiritual warfare.
Going so far as to call it.
Going so far as to call Islam the devil's great counter-religion, a parody of faith that they claim is designed to enslave the soul while deceptively claiming to save it. They make the very strong statement that until we have spiritual clarity about what Islam actually is, we will neither help Muslims nor avert disaster.
That's a very challenging and direct assessment, and certainly a controversial viewpoint for many listeners, I imagine. But despite such a strong theological stance, the sources emphasize an approach of evangelical compassion, urging that Muslims themselves are souls, not enemies. How do they reconcile this seemingly conflicting perspective?
That's a crucial distinction these sources make, and they hammer it home. They separate the system from the individual. They state clearly, Muslims are not the problem. Islam is.
Okay.
They characterize many Muslims as kind, family-centered, morally earnest people who, in their view, are victims of a theological system that weaponizes fear and suppresses truth.
Still made in God's image.
Exactly. They emphasize that these individuals are born into what they describe as bondage, but are still profoundly made in the image of God. The mandate, drawing from Ephesians 6:1, is clear. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers,
Right, the spiritual forces.
against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. This is why, they argue, the duty remains to reach them through conversation, compassion, courageous witness, and spiritual warfare and prayer.
Even if it's difficult.
Even acknowledging that some will awaken but most may not, they emphasize that the duty to try and share what they consider the truth remains paramount.
Given that framework, what are the specific tactics suggested by these sources for engaging in this dialogue with Muslims? What does that compassionate witness look like in practice?
Well, the primary approach is to highlight core theological differences respectfully but firmly. They emphasize that Muslims deny the Trinity, the sonship of Jesus, his death and resurrection, the grace of salvation, while Christianity, as they interpret it, affirms John 14:6, Jesus is the only way, and Galatians 1:8, which they use to label Islam as what they call a false gospel.
And how do they suggest bridging that gap?
A key tactic they advise is to use Muslims' own revered scriptures, the Torah, Tarat, Psalms, Zabur, and Gospel, Injil, as a bridge.
Using common ground.
Exactly. Sharing stories of Abraham, Moses, David, prophecies of Jesus from the Hebrew Bible like Isaiah 53 can resonate, emphasizing that what they consider the true gospel predates Islam and cannot be changed, citing Mark 13:31.
And asking questions.
Yes, asking respectful but revealing questions like, why does the Quran speak highly of Jesus but deny his resurrection? Or why is there no assurance of salvation in Islam? Or why is coercion necessary if Islam is true?
Focusing the conversation.
Always centering on Jesus, his identity, death, and resurrection, citing 1 Corinthians 1:23-24. They strongly advise avoiding political or cultural debates about Muhammad, which they say are often unproductive distractions.
What about personal stories?
Personal testimonies are highly recommended. Stories of former Muslims who found Christ through dreams, visions, healing, or radical love are presented as powerful tools that can bypass intellectual barriers.
And underneath it all.
Fundamentally, everything should be covered in prayer and fasting. Recognizing this, for them, as spiritual warfare, where only the Holy Spirit can open eyes, referencing John 6:44. And while preparing for rejection, these sources emphasize leaving room for redemption, reminding listeners of Jesus' promise in Mark 10:29-30 for those who choose him, despite the potential cost, family rejection, threats, isolation.
And what are some of the common pitfalls or mistakes Christians should avoid when trying to share their message with Muslims, according to these sources? Looks like they provide a list.
They do. Several crucial mistakes. First, assuming all Muslims are the same. Big mistake. They stress understanding differences. Sunni, Shia, Sufi, cultural secular Muslims. Listen first.
Makes sense. What else?
Second, attacking Muhammad or the Quran prematurely. This is seen as a personal attack and usually counterproductive. They advise starting with Jesus, letting differences arise naturally.
Dialogue, not debate.
Exactly. Third, debating instead of dialoguing. Debating builds defenses. Dialogue aims to plant seeds. The goal isn't winning an argument.
And language.
Fourth, using Christian jargon without explanation. Terms like born again or Trinity can be confusing, even offensive, if not carefully introduced.
Acknowledge the difficulty.
Fifth, ignoring the cost of conversion. This is huge. Acknowledging the potential family rejection, threats, isolation is essential for an honest witness, referencing Matthew 10:39.
Patience.
Sixth, pushing for quick decisions. Faith is a journey, they state. Patience is needed. Let the Holy Spirit work, citing John 6:44 again.
Prayer again.
Seventh, neglecting to pray. Highlighted as the greatest evangelistic tool, vital in what they see as spiritual warfare.
Do your homework.
Eighth, not studying Islam deeply enough. Understanding their beliefs shows respect and allows for more informed, relevant questions.
Actions speak louder.
Ninth, failing to show the love of Christ in action. Citing Matthew 5:16, hospitality and service often demonstrate the gospel more powerfully than words.
And the ultimate goal.
And finally, 10th, forgetting the goal is Jesus, not simply converting someone to religion. John 17:3 is referenced. It's about inviting them to know a person, not just adopt a label.
The sources also delve into Islam's own eschatology, their prophecies about the end times, and it presents a rather curious description of their anticipated messianic figure and a key adversary.
Yes, in Islamic eschatology, as these sources describe it, Jesus does return, but with a very different role than in Christianity. He's said to break the cross, a hugely significant symbolic act, and assist the Mahdi, who is their messianic figure, in fighting the Dajjal.
The Dajjal being their Antichrist figure.
Correct. And what's truly curious, and the sources point this out as a point of critical discernment, is that the descriptions of the Dajjal often sound, to their interpretation, like a progressive liberator,
Really? How so?
someone who will free women, introduce seemingly benevolent changes. This is presented as a significant divergence from the traditional Abrahamic understanding of an Antichrist as purely evil. It suggests a very deceptive guise.
And the source's conclusion on this?
The sources explicitly claim, based on this interpretation, the devil now has his own religion, and they make an ultimate, rather definitive statement for all faiths born in this current age. All religions born in this age will pass with this age.
Wow. A complete spiritual reset.
That's the implication, yes. A very stark, forward-looking pronouncement.
Okay, after exploring such deep and sometimes challenging theological and prophetic ground, let's shift gears. We're moving to something that feels very modern, yet is surprisingly intertwined with these ancient prophecies. The rapid rise of artificial intelligence. The sources suggest AI could actually be a catalyst for this new age, especially through what they describe as India's civilizational edge. This sounds like a fascinating convergence of ancient and future.
This is where the narrative takes a truly fascinating, almost unexpected turn into the intersection of ancient wisdom and cutting-edge technology. The sources state that the Age of Abundance, which aligns with the Satya Yuga, was indeed prophesied in the scriptures thousands of years ago.
Okay.
And one of the most intriguing modern developments they highlight is the work on Sanskrit AI.
Sanskrit AI. Tell me more.
Apparently, a breakaway group from OpenAI, the sources claim, is working on Sanskrit-based AI. They're tapping into the language's inherent computational architecture.
Computational architecture. In Sanskrit.
Yes. They refer specifically to Panini's Ashtadhyayi, an ancient Sanskrit grammar from at least 500 BCE. What's remarkable is how these sources describe it, not just as a grammar book, but as a sophisticated, generative, rule-based computational system, almost like an early, incredibly precise programming language that inherently forces logical structure and clarity.
That's incredible. So what's the specific potential they see in this Sanskrit AI, beyond just being an interesting linguistic curiosity?
The potential, they argue, is multifaceted and really profound. First, it could lead to more interpretable AI models.
Wow.
Because Sanskrit's grammar inherently forces clarity, consistency, logical structure, making the AI's reasoning more transparent, less of a black box.
Okay, that's huge in AI right now.
Huge. Second, it offers a path to symbolic connectionist fusion, basically bridging the gap between classical symbolic AI rules, logic, and the neural networks that dominate today, learning from data patterns. This fusion could create much more robust and truly intelligent AI.
Combining the best of both worlds.
Potentially. And perhaps most profoundly, they suggest it could enable spiritual semantics.
Spiritual semantics, what does that mean?
Sanskrit, the sources explain, has ontological insights, deep knowledge about being, reality itself embedded in its very word formation, its philosophical concepts. This could offer AI structured knowledge about consciousness, ethics, the nature of reality, not just superficial data patterns.
So AI with deeper understanding.
That's the idea. This project, for these sources, is explicitly seen as a bridge from the dark confusion of the Kali Yuga to the illuminated clarity of the Satya Yuga. It's about AI not just for productivity, but for spiritual reintegration and understanding, a tool for elevation.
And beyond Sanskrit, there's another significant AI development in India related to linguistic diversity. This sounds like it could have a massive societal impact.
Yes, absolutely. In parallel, there's a government-backed AI team in India building foundational models for every Indian language. We're talking Hindi, Tamil, but also Kasi, Maithili, Bodo, hundreds of languages.
Wow, that's ambitious.
Hugely ambitious. And it represents a radical democratization of AI access. Today, most large language models are English dominant, which means only about 10% of the global population can truly engage with AI at a sophisticated conversational level.
Right, locking out billions.
Exactly. By embedding multilingualism at its core, this project promises to fundamentally break the education barrier. Imagine villagers, tribal children, farmers querying AI in their native tongues, unlocking universal knowledge previously unimaginable.
That's revolutionary.
It really is. It will also supercharge economic productivity, bringing millions of new users into the digital economy, leading potentially to what's described as knowledge-led double-digit GDP growth. And furthermore, it profoundly empowers cultural preservation.
How so?
Region-specific knowledge, traditional medicine, agriculture, ecology, can be preserved, disseminated, and even optimized locally by AI in the local language. The conclusion these sources draw is striking. India could catch up with the West technologically in maybe just 20 years, not 70.
Turning the digital divide?
Into a digital springboard, as they put it.
This is a powerful vision, AI playing a role in nothing less than a civilizational shift. How do these AI paradigms align with the overarching Yuga cycle we discussed earlier? Where's the connection back to Satya Yuga?
It connects back perfectly to that fundamental difference between the Western linear view of history, primitive modern hyper-tech future, and the Indian cyclical view of the Yugas.
All right.
If the Satya Yuga indeed represented a period of higher cognitive and spiritual capacity for humanity, then Sanskrit, these sources argue, is seen as a kind of fossilized trace of that elevated state.
Like a memory embedded in language.
Exactly, a code waiting to be reactivated. The idea is that combining Sanskrit's algorithmic structure with today's AI could do more than just make machines smarter. It could actually evolve humans, reconnecting us with cognitive and ethical capacities long forgotten, maybe even predating our current understanding of human potential.
That's mind-blowing. Satya Yuga AI.
That's what they call it. AI that helps us remember our higher nature. And the linguistic diversity AI then ensures this renaissance reaches everyone, right down to the grassroots, bringing Satya Yuga down to the grassroots through voice, dialogue, and access, empowering everyone.
So India's AI edge
Isn't just technical. According to these sources, it's civilizational. It's leading towards the rehumanization of intelligence, where AI becomes potentially a bridge between epochs, a tool for mass awakening, and the engine of a civilization finally ready to remember who it truly is. A profound possibility. Hashtag tag outro.
Wow, what an incredible deep dive we've had today. We've navigated ancient prophecies of cyclical ages, explored the unmistakable signs that these sources say are manifesting right now.
And they are quite specific signs.
Very specific. We delved into complex interfaith perspectives on the Messiah and the end times, finding surprising harmonies and stark differences. And we even touched upon the surprising and profound role artificial intelligence might play in ushering in a new age. It's a vast landscape of thought we've covered.
It really is. And this raises an important question for you, our listener, doesn't it? If these ancient patterns are indeed unfolding, as these sources suggest, and these new technologies are emerging that could either lead to unprecedented control or profound liberation, what does that mean for your own understanding, for your choices?
Right. It's not just academic.
Not at all. Gaining knowledge about these diverse perspectives isn't just an intellectual exercise. These sources argue it's crucial for navigating our current world with clarity, with purpose.
So what does all this mean for you as you reflect on this deep dive? These sources present a powerful narrative, a challenging one, but also hopeful in ways. The war may be coming, they suggest, but so too is the light.
The dawn after the darkness.
As they consistently remind us, when the night is darkest, the dawn is near. They tell us that in the next stage, humanity's capacity for spiritual knowledge will be 100 times greater than it is now.
Imagine that potential.
And perhaps most profoundly, that God is about to say something new, something that will reshape human consciousness entirely. So the question becomes, what steps will you take to prepare your soul, speak the truth, and defend the righteouses in light of these potential unfolding?
It's a call to action, in a sense.
It is. Consider this final thought from the sources. We are approaching the end of spiritual primary school. Graduation, it seems, is near.